want you to know the woman met the confrontation head on. So she made her impression, and then she began her teaching. Now, what was downloaded through her and the teachers she had been with in Asia and Russia is particularly interesting because the Russian Orthodox Church, as Brian mentioned, they maintain within their theology a concept of the Spirit. The Catholics had done what? Got rid of. So she was raised in that environment. Moreover, when she was a child, she went up to the mouth of the Volga River with her family and visited one of the most remote communities of Buddhists in the world. And there's a whole Russian community of Buddhists in the mouth of the Volga River that practice pure Buddhism. And they had come over from Mongolia, I think 500 years before or something. And so she was exposed to other religions as a child. And she had resources. She had a wealthy family, so she traveled extensively. So when she met her teachers in India, and she met one of her Indian teachers in England, they said, "We have a job for you." And they began to teach her, and she did study in India up around Kashmir and Srinagar. She had a house. And in a lot of other places, the evidence is pretty plain. She was one of the few white women that traveled extensively throughout India and Tibet besides Alexandra Davis-Neal, the French woman. Blavatsky dressed as a man, she said, most of the time. And as I said, later witnesses came forward having recalled seeing her there, people who lived there. So we know she really did it. She got learning. Plus she had the background. Plus she had the psychic ability. You got the picture? Yeah. So she began writing, and what she began writing seems to have been as though someone got the compiled teachings of Asia and put a funnel to her head. What was the text I told you turned out to be a translation of the Buddhist canon? Okay, she translated one text with a DZ, Dazan. The stanzas of Dazan, you need to realize, as a student of Tibetan Buddhism, I'm familiar, there are two sets of commentaries. One is called the Kangur and the other is called the Kangur. Apparently she had gotten hold of, I think it's the Kangur. You have to realize this is hundreds of volumes. And somehow she had managed to begin downloading it. I mean, just downloading it. You can't possibly memorize 150 volumes. She said, "I'm not writing this, it's just coming through me, but it's good stuff." And it's only been in, I think, since 1980 that someone actually took that text and matched it against the Buddhist canon and said, "I'll be darned, that's a really nice translation of a portion of the classical Tibetan Buddhist canon." No one had had the ability to translate, and they didn't have access to the manuscript. There she was sitting at the table every night. This stuff was just pouring out of her. So what's interesting to me is how precise and accurate it was, how a scholar, an academic, recognized what it was. So Blavatsky became this terrific download of teachings, and most of it she described as Buddhism without the trappings, but specifically Tibetan Buddhism without the trappings. This is important because the Tibetans had access to a lot of wisdom that predated Buddhism. So when you say Tibetan Buddhism, you're talking about something that takes in two streams. You understand? You say, "Yeah." Okay, good. I want to be sure that you wait. Shuffle your feet, wiggle your shoulders. Now, she's getting this material and downloading, and everybody's saying, "Where is this coming from? We know it's right." The scholars wouldn't touch her, and the ones that did were profoundly influenced. And artists and writers and historians, everyone who met her came away impressed. And the ones who never met her would try to renounce her and talk behind her back. I remember Chesterton, who was sort of the Roman Catholic defender of the faith in England. And he's very funny. He's a great writer, and he's a journalist. He said Blavatsky represented the worst of Victorian womanhood and far painted a really nasty picture of her. You understand? Now, he never met her. Had he met her and had a little face contact, he probably would have felt a little different. Because she was nothing like this caricature that people often had of her, especially when you met her. So other people met her and she changed their lives. I could give you a list. If you get Cranston's book, there must be 100 chief people from that period of history who once had personal interviews with her. Writers, scientists, you name it. Einstein kept Isis unveiled on his desk. So she touched every major field of knowledge. What I want you to know, and anyone who took her seriously took her writing seriously. And this all came in as a response to spiritualism and began to flow. Now, they asked her, and it's in your little book that you're going over here. Who's studying this right now? Yeah. They asked her, is this Buddhism? Is what you're teaching Buddhism? She said, no, it's Theosophy. They said, why isn't it Buddhism? And she said, because we're specific about the soul that reincarnates. You see, in traditional Buddhism, there isn't one. You have something that can be dissolved, that is not permanent. In fundamental Buddhism, you don't have a soul. You're an aggregate of forces that come together and then do what? Dissolve. Now, when Buddhism went into Tibet, they said, oh, wait a minute, wait. They said, that may be, but it's possible for you to make a soul. So the Tibetan idea is that you can construct what? A soul. But they don't follow the Christians that you're born with one. They say, no, you're not born with anything. The soul is only developed in proportion to the amount of work you put into it. But there is one, it can be made. Now, Blavatsky said in Theosophy there is a soul, it does reincarnate over and over, and that's what separated it from fundamentalist Buddhism. Are you guys clear now? But I want you to separate that again from Tibetan Buddhism, which is taken in all sorts of other areas. A lot of which you have in Theosophy, as Blavatsky would say, without the trappings. So she said Buddhism without the trappings, right? Now here's something else very interesting. In America, prior to Blavatsky, we had a guy named Ralph Waldo Emerson. Anyone heard of him? Okay, now, he said what interested him was Christianity without the trappings. Now, what's interesting about Emerson is his most condensed and profound writings that were written at the very end of his life were not published till what? 3 years ago? 2008. So you can get those now. You can finally see where Emerson was at in America with this profound, super condensed, mystical Christianity without the trappings. So this was just released in 2008. No one got the papers out of the chest to translate them because they figured he was an senile old man because the handwriting was a little difficult to read. But a couple of guys said there's something there, and they found it. It's published. And Emerson talked about Christianity without the trappings, and everything that Emerson mentioned in its basic alphabet block form later appears on the scene with Rudolf Steiner. But it popped over from America after Emerson's death, and whatever spirit that is of Christianity without the trappings seemed to stand at the shoulder of Rudolf Steiner because he began to sound quite a bit like who? Emerson. So there's two streams now. Buddhism without the trappings and Christianity without the and they met. Okay. And they met when Steiner joined the Theosophical Society. He was interested. Blavatsky had passed away, and Steiner came into the society, and he became the representative of all the theosophical there's a photograph of Annie Besant and Steiner standing together, and there's a note from Annie Besant that says, Mr. Steiner represents something different from what we teach, but he is a real friend, and we're glad to have him with us. And so she recognized his gift, but also his what? His difference. Okay. So Steiner headed the German section, and these things processed together, and there was a disagreement. And I'll tell you what the disagreement was over. It was over two main things, and I think they're both very fascinating because they're both worth exploring. And one was the identity of the Maitreya. Remember Krishnamurti? Do you all know this story about Krishnamurti? Okay, well, just to give the cliff notes, Besant and others in the Theosophical Society had discovered this young genius in India named Krishnamurti, who was later called Krishnamurti. Okay, and they said he is the return of Christ. Now Steiner, who was coming in with Christianity without the trappings, he said, I don't think so. So the disagreement was over the identity of who. So that was a big deal because Steiner said, from what I've researched, Christ doesn't need to come back again in the body. And that's a whole other very rich discussion about where is Christ and what he's doing, especially in light of where Christianity is in history right now. Well, Steiner said he's here and he's unavoidable, and the contest is to just pay attention to where he is and not be distracted. This is the biggest battle we have as people in modern times, is the battle of the mind. And what we're deprived of through the mass media is the ability to concentrate, to pay attention. So Steiner, his first spiritual exercise to his students was an exercise of concentration. He said, this is going to get harder because technology is coming, machinery is coming, TV is coming, media is coming, propaganda is coming. You're going to have to learn to concentrate because you are going to be just torn to shreds by all of the distractions you're going to be provided with. Does this make sense to you? So this is where Steiner was coming in. Now he also said this. As he came in, he said, the release of all the information that Madame Blavatsky was given as it came into this time was the weapon to be used against scientific imperialism. Everybody was turning to science for answers. They weren't believing in anything. They wanted everything to be proven. And what I say about modern science is it will prove to you everything but the meaning. So if you look at something and you want to know what it means, you will not get it from science. You'll get what it's made of. So what science normally does is it takes a bird and kills it, cuts it open, and looks at it, and tells you what's inside of that science. You're going to understand. It's a kind of thanatology. You got to kill something, pin it down, break it apart, and look at it, and that's science. So science has basically vacuumed the meaning out of everything and presented us with the shells. Okay. I'll give you another example. In one of C.S. Lewis's books, the children meet this very beautiful, warm, odd, bright being that doesn't quite have a body, and they have a pact with it. And then the children leave, and they ask someone else, who was it? And that they said, oh, you were talking to the sun. The children said, no, the sun is just a ball of gas. And they said, no, you don't understand. That's what the sun is made of. That's not what it is. So this separation between science, which is what things are made of, and meaning, which is what it is one of the first battlegrounds of Blavatsky's information from all of the ancient religions and philosophies she represented, was to bring people back to the world of the spirit by reintroducing them to the ancient wisdom. And she called it specifically ancient wisdom. And I'm saying this because the tendency at the time was to get caught up in her activities or phenomenology, miracles. She was trying to say, look, it's child's play. Don't get distracted by it. You need to know the wisdom. So she brought in all of this wisdom and dropped it off in her book. And luckily, she met Annie Besant, who was a suffragette, revolutionary, two-fisted Amazon woman who wanted to get things done. And she passed on the society to her because she knew Annie Besant could what? Get it done. But Annie Besant did not have Madame Blavatsky's psychic gifts. But she had something that was probably equally important, and that's some political savvy. She carried the organization. Anyway, she discovered Krishnamurti. Steiner said, no, it's not Jesus, it's not Maitreya, he's not a bodhisattva. I don't know if Steiner ever said who he thought Krishnamurti was, because as you all know, Krishnamurti stayed in the Theosophical Society for some time, and then when he broke away, he became one of the most famous teachers of the century. So whoever he was somebody important. You all follow me? So my point is that whatever the Theosophical Society saw in him, it was something good and it survived. And he wrote incredible books, and his lectures are on YouTube. You can actually just put them up and listen to Krishnamurti. They're extremely good. And Krishnamurti was interested in one thing when he got toward the end of his life. He said that the human being has to have complete freedom inside himself. He said we're beyond the nursemaid, we're beyond the priest telling us. Now it's our turn. Each of us has to become a priest and priestess unto ourselves. This is big. This is bigness. And this frightened people, because what does that do to the religious institution? Yeah. He didn't say you couldn't study them, but he said they're not going to give you the answer to your heart's desire. But they will give you the wisdom. They'll give you wisdom, they'll give you teachings, but they won't give you the answer to the heart's desire. Am I making sense? So I need you to realize how significant he is and how significant that discovery was and how that all came out of this stream. So I want you to see this as a river. These are rivers of teaching. And you can go back at any point in the river and get tremendous treasure out of any branch and bring it up to the future, because times have changed, so you've got to update it and apply it. Am I making sense? Yeah. Okay, so when they disagreed, Steiner bailed from the Theosophical Society in 1910, and in 1912 he started the Anthroposophical Society. Anthropos being the study of the human. Now, Theosophy continued, so I want you to see that all the Asian streams and everything that Blavatsky put on the launch pad continued to influence art, science, and culture, particularly in America, and a lot of times behind the scenes. So you find people like Edison, Tesla, Westinghouse, all of these famous scientists and inventors, they were on the brink of psychic research and scientific research. Nearly every one of them read Blavatsky. You need to be aware of this. She has been so marginalized by the history books, and yet she was a major figure in the 20th century. And if you go back and look, you'll see who she's influenced. It is just incredible. And people in countries all over the world. In fact, she influenced George Russell, who's another fantastic character in Ireland, who basically was the main fire of the Irish literary renaissance with William Butler Yeats and all the great Irish poets and writers who sprouted in Ireland. They came out from Russell, who was basically following exercises and teachings from Blavatsky and pouring them into old Celtic legends, finding out the meanings of the Celtic legends all over again. And it wasn't just Ireland, that's one example. Blavatsky returned to India. One of the reasons that she went to India was she was there to reawaken the Indian interest in their own culture, which the British had what? Yeah. So I want you to see how significant she was, and that the stream continues, it continues here, continues now. Steiner's Anthroposophical Society, when it sprouted and grew legs in Germany, suddenly biodynamic farming, totally organic farming, was so devoted to the earth they talked to the elementals. Biodynamic medicine, where you treat the body, the soul, and the spirit, it's just as comprehensive as Ayurvedic medicine, but it uses all of Western science with it. Okay. Weleda Cosmetics, all the natural organic cosmetic companies that appeared in Switzerland appeared as a result of Steiner's influence. He started a whole new trend of architecture. And Waldorf schools, there's about 800 around the world now. And they teach the child, believing the child already has a soul, and so they already come in with something that has to be brought forward. They do not treat the child as a pot for the sticking. They treat the child as a match, light on fire. So it's a very different approach. So all of these things came out of Steiner and anthroposophy, and it's moving simultaneously with this blossoming and all these tentacles from Blavatsky's teachings going out into the arts and sciences in America and Europe. Okay? There's a little picture of where we were, and now sit up straight in your chair and take a breath and look at this and realize that it's happening again now. So, you know, if teachers come forward, and there's a lot of fascinating stuff with Bruce Lipton and DNA and the teachings of Abraham on vibrational awareness and getting people in an emotional harmonic, and the physicists are coming up with the theologians, and it's getting more and more in contact. There's getting to be more and more agreement again between Eastern and Western ideas and material science and spiritual ideas. Do you understand? So this wave is hitting again, so enjoy it. But we have twice as much distraction because of media. So the war for your body, soul, and spirit is largely between your ability to concentrate on what's important for you alone and what the forces outside want you to look at. Does this make sense? That's essentially the next stage of black magic versus white magic. Do you want a mind of your own, or do you want someone else to run it? This is where we are. And I'm sure some of you talk to people every day and you wonder, where's their mind at? Well, I can talk to you as a traditionally trained Muslim herbalist. All modern medications, as a rule, cool the liver. So if you want to put a block of ice in your liver, you take a medication, and what that does is it numbs you out. And it prevents you from digesting the finer elements of the food and carrying them into the bloodstream to be distributed to the cells. So what medications do, in essence, all medications, is block the liver. The Egyptians thought the liver was the seat of the soul. Now, the Arabs, they didn't believe that, but they did say it was the final stomach. So this stomach on this side digests the coarse elements. The liver is digesting the most refined elements. So when you pray over the food, it's the liver that feels the vibration of the prayer. So if you block it off by cooling it and letting it get gummed up, you're not able to feel the subtle vibration of blessed food. How do you like that? Is that good enough? Okay. So she's asked me what the cure is for depression, and you watch the news on TV, and you really need a cure, don't you? Some people go to the horror movies. Some people go to horror movies. I'm interested in watching how much more horror there is on television, because I'm thinking people really want to see heads come off and blood go everywhere, and the anticipation, the nervous anxiety of a horror movie. I'm thinking, what is it? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to do to themselves? Look, wherever there's a response, there's a need. So if someone needs to be scared to death, it tells me that they're not feeling enough. And then the other question is, why are they not feeling enough? Something is, they've lost the ability to feel, so they've got to be shocked. So what is happening in this picture? Yeah. Well, it's like the soul has a callus. You shock, and eventually the person's unshockable, so you have to raise the level of the shock to impress. This is an odd time to live, because you don't see much about good fathers. And women are always fighting. Think about it. The dominant thing for a woman these days is fighting. Fighting men, fighting a job, fighting stupidity. Of course, the man is not present, or he's a dick, or he's a fool. That's pretty much the media presentation, and heroes are only superheroes. There's not a human hero. So what's happened is the role of the father has been erased. The mother's forced to be two, and there's no hero present except one that's not possible. This makes sense to you. So how does it make you feel? Helpless. Now, if a child is helpless, they will run to you. So if you're helpless, who are you going to run to? Yeah. So I encourage you to find out who that self is that you're going to run to. There's one there that you're going to have to get the, whatever that is you use on your feet to get the calluses off the feet. You've got to get that on your soul and polish things up a bit. You will have to go in. It's not out per se. Okay, go ahead.